talk, girl talk. What's better than girl talk? Girl talk, girl talk. What's better than girl talk? A chat with the ladies about their day, the ups and downs along the way. She's a cook, she's a chauffeur, she's a worker bee. First in the door and last to leave. Girl talk, girl talk. What's better than girl talk? Girl talk, girl talk. What's better than girl talk?
Welcome to Girl Talk. I'm Regina Ayars.
I'm Carol Voisin.
And Girl Talk is a lively discussion of the opportunities, challenges, and successes of women in their daily lives. We interview women living here in the Rogue Valley who are making a difference in their communities. Today we are talking with two women who have recently been elected to our local city councils. Our second guest is Emily Berlant, who was elected to the Talent City Council 2 years ago. But I'm sure that she still has some challenges that she didn't expect. So, Carol, would you like to introduce our guest?
Emily, I'd love to introduce you, but I don't know that much about you. Would you please introduce yourself? Tell us, how did you get here to Talent, and why you got involved in politics? Because it is such a funny occupation or hobby or whatever.
Definitely. Well, I grew up in Grants Pass, so I've been in the Rogue Valley basically my entire life. And after spending about a year and a half touring the country in a van with my husband's band, I decided to go back to school, and we settled down in Ashland, and I started going to SOU. And while as a student there, I got introduced to Rogue Climate and became a member of Rogue Climate's board of directors. Started getting really involved in local issues, particularly the Jordan Cove LNG pipeline issue.
Excellent.
And working on climate conversations in Talent. So after some time in Ashland, ended up moving to Talent because it was more affordable to live than Ashland was. And one of the very first things that we did as Rogue Climate in Talent was start hosting community living room conversations around the noticeable impacts of climate change. And through those conversations, started to develop the Clean Energy Action Plan that the city has now adopted. And after we wrote that plan, and before it was adopted to the city council, I was kind of in limbo and thought, what am I going to do next? I'm done writing this plan. I'm still in school. I'm working part-time, and I needed something else to fill my already full plate. And a seat opened up on the Talent City Council for appointment. So it was in the middle of a term, and I applied. I wasn't selected for that appointment, but that was in July or August, and there was going to be open seats in the election coming up in November. So I decided to put my name in that hat, and nobody ran against me, and so I ended up on the Talent City Council.
That's too easy. That is
Very good. Very good.
I mean, it still took some labor to get my name on the ballot.
That's right. That's right.
But it was an uncontested race, so I feel fortunate
Good for
that.
you. Yeah.
So you have a lot in common with our previous guest, Tanya Graham, because she works for Geo Institute and is involved in climate. And so do you two bump into each other along the way?
Recently, it's been mostly at Jordan Cove events.
Okay.
We ran into each other at a Department of State Lands hearing earlier this year, and the Senate House Committee on Carbon Reduction for the Clean Energy Jobs Bill hearing a few months ago. So we keep running into each other in those venues, but not so much professionally.
Are you still in school?
Nope, I graduated in 2017 with a bachelor's in environmental studies.
Okay, so
Very good.
You're walking the walk.
Yes,
That's
it's
great.
all day, every day.
That's great, yeah.
I just returned from Alaska on a cruise, a very small boat, and there were two biologists on it. And I asked each one of them separately. They didn't overhear the other. And I said, what do you think about climate change? They both said the same thing. They said the human race is doomed. There is no way we're going to get out of this. What do you think?
That's a big question, coming right out of the gate.
Yeah.
You know, so much about the conversation around climate change for so long has been about save the planet, save the animals. And I think that there is a lot of truth in that. But at the end of the day, or I guess at the end of our lifetime, it's really us, the humanity, that we have control over, and that is causing climate change and is going to suffer the most from the impacts. The Earth will go on. Climate change is not going to explode the Earth and will just be particles floating in outer space, but it's going to become uninhabitable for humanity. The comfort that we have come to know and love over the last 5,000 to 10,000 years is going to go away. And so the planet has never held 7 billion plus people on it before. So we've done a lot of things that this planet that's been around for millions of years has never seen before. And as much as a changing climate is natural to Earth's changing systems, it's never changed with people on it. So that's really what it comes down to, is it's our existence that is threatened, and it's our ability to exist with plants and animals that we utilize, that we harvest and consume, or that we benefit from, and ones that we just enjoy for their beauty and grand flora and fauna. But yeah, I would say that our existence is threatened for sure.
So if it's that kind of crisis, what do you think we should be doing?
So much.
Like?
It's such a
what
big
should we
crisis.
be doing that we're not doing?
We should be holding the corporations accountable that have put us into this mess.
Absolutely.
You know, much of the work that I do is about individual impact and what can we do as individuals to make a difference, reduce our impact, or give a beneficial impact. And why I put emphasis on that is because it is such a big issue, and it can feel so depressing and depleting to think about it for 5 minutes, for 5 hours, for 5 years. And we can empower ourselves by taking individual action, by turning off our lights when we're not in the room, by using a ceramic cup over a plastic cup.
Thank you for that reminder. Right, yeah. Well, you mentioned empowerment. So what I feel is that, I can't do much at the national level, can do a little bit at the state level, but where I feel empowered is at the local level. So that's where, the policies that are implemented by our small communities. So I want to get back to you being on the City Council, Talent City Council. And before we start up, I want to run a video of you. I took a little clip of you. I've been to many Ashland City Council meetings, but this was my first Talent City Council meeting, and it's a little different, a little more informal. So can we run that video of the Talent City Council?
Tomorrow night, Thursday, June 6th, from 4 to 8 p.m. at Talent Maker City, there will be an art make, getting together to make art for the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission hearings on the Jordan Cove LNG pipeline with Rogue Climate. So come on down to Talent Maker City tomorrow from 4 to 8 to make art for stopping this darn pipeline.
Well, we get to see you in action there, sitting next to the mayor. One thing I'd like to comment on, of course, is that there are 4 women councilors, 2 men, a woman mayor, and a woman city manager. So that gender is weighted in the female direction. We do have equity now in Ashland with three female councilors. But anyway, I wanted to ask, you've been on the council for 2 years, so I'm sure you don't have a lot of surprises anymore. But if you can think back when you first started, what was something that you did not anticipate as a counselor in talent?
I think the biggest thing that caught me by surprise being on the council was the length of meetings.
Okay.
I had been to a few council meetings. I had presented at a few council meetings on behalf of Rogue Climate and the work that we were doing in talent, but I had yet to stay through the whole length of a meeting. And in my interview for the appointment seat, I said, well, I'm a student. I sit all day. I can sit through lectures and meetings for hours and hours. But it's a very different reality when you sit down at 6 o'clock for a meeting and you're there till 10 o'clock.
And you have to be attentive too.
Yes. You have to be attentive. You have to be attentive to the individuals next to you and the audience and the staff, and navigating all of the present personalities, all of the background and research that you're bringing into it, being sensitive to the work that staff has put in. That has definitely been, I think, one of the biggest struggles has been the city staff who spend 40 plus hours a week working on research and background and materials and reason for issues to come before council, and then council gets a packet of information 6 days before the meeting, and talent council is all working class, all working folks. There's one person on the council who's retired.
Oh, okay,
So,
different than our council, yes.
It's the opposite.
so everybody is working, has families and lives and other extracurricular activities, and often we come into the meeting and we maybe haven't had 40 hours to spend reviewing the information and
Or dinner.
exactly. The meeting of the clip that you just
Yes.
showed, I had been
You
driving
just
for 8
skipped
hours
right in.
and arrived just in
Literally.
time for the meeting.
Literally, yeah.
And so, there's a lot that happens outside of the meeting or isn't happening outside of the meeting that you have to be conscientious of in that time. And when a counselor is asking a question or raising a point of concern, making sure that we're being sensitive and cognizant of the amount of time that staff has put in, and recognizing that we're just learning this. And so there's some kind of emotional tiptoeing that has to happen to make sure that you're not diminishing the work that staff has done, but acknowledging the limited amount of time that we've had with the information.
Right, and the public is there talking. Do you have a public input as we have in Ashland where the public can come and talk on anything they want to talk on?
Yep, we have a citizens heard on non-agenda items section where anybody can come and speak to any point, and then any citizen can speak on any agenda item as well throughout the evening.
Yeah, that's what we have. One of the goals, in fact, it's the first goal, when I went on talent website that the city has and that I'm sure the counselors set up, was this: to improve communications with residents and increase transparency. So how are you doing that?
That's a really great question, and it's something that we've had on the top of our goals the whole time that I've been on council.
Good.
And a lot of our goals come from past experience. So maybe we found a couple years ago that nobody knew what was going on, nobody could access any information, and so we make it a goal to improve on that. So we've, over the last year or so, we have been working on finding a way to improve our website, because I'm glad you could find something on it, because it's really, really hard to find anything on it.
It's not very deep,
Nope.
I gotta tell you.
And don't try to use the search function.
Oh no, don't worry.
It won't help you.
Same in Ashland, so don't worry.
I will say the Ashland website is a little easier to navigate. It's a little more user-friendly, but it's been redoing the talent website is one of our top priorities, but it's very costly. And so that's another thing we're really often needing to balance is what cost gives us the highest benefit and meets the biggest need of our community. So improving transparency, improving communication. We're doing better at promoting events and meetings on Facebook and making sure that the counselors who are involved in Facebook on their personal pages are speaking to their council positions appropriately, not over speaking,
Right.
not just referring people to the appropriate information on the website rather than saying just find it on the website. We're actually doing the work to find the information on the website and share that with individuals.
So are your meetings televised? So they're not televised. So somebody has to come to the meeting if they want to see or hear what's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We did just redo all of our audio equipment so our audience can hear us better when they're in the room, but we don't have any video capacity yet. Our meetings are recorded so somebody can listen to the audio after the meeting.
Oh, that's good.
But really to be in the moment, you either got to be there, or sometimes if it's a really hot topic, somebody will come and do a live stream to Facebook on their own phone so people can access it that way, but it's really infrequent.
So you have had some public open houses, and I know one of them had to deal with the smart meters. So were you part of that?
I was a part of making sure that got scheduled, but I did not attend it.
Okay.
At the time, I was working as the company that I work for, we partner with electric utilities to manage green power programs. And at the time, I was working as a representative for Pacific Power.
Oh,
so
you had to recuse yourself.
I didn't attend that meeting, just to keep things a little smoother.
That's a good idea.
But I was one of the main counselors that encouraged that meeting to happen and really spearheaded the adoption of a talent resolution regarding the costs of opting out of smart meters.
Yeah, very good. Okay.
So when you first started in 2016, did you get was there anybody else new on the council at the time? Were you the only new counselor?
I think that I was the only newly elected. Somebody else, I believe, was elected, but they were who had been appointed a few months prior. So they'd been sitting on the council for a few months already.
Yeah. Well, did you get any training? Did anybody step up and kind of mentor you? And did you get any public meeting law, public meeting training, any of that?
There were some open meetings and trainings that were offered up that other agencies were making available. But at the time, I was a full-time student, and going to a meeting at 2 o'clock in the afternoon in Roseburg wasn't something that I could make happen.
Right.
So I really leaned on Darby, our mayor, a lot. And my father was a city councilor in Grants Pass when I was younger. So I leaned on him a lot. And then a few months in, when Stephanie Dolan was appointed to the council, we somehow ended up walking our dogs at the same time almost every day. So we would rendezvous and mentor each other. And that's kind of how we started our relationship.
But 2 counselors together is not a meeting, so there's that restriction. You can't have 3 counselors together. Yeah.
So another goal that you have in Talent is that you make that you increase land availability and that you improve housing affordability. So how are you doing the latter, improving housing affordability?
That's a great question. And I would say that that's not my specific area of expertise. But what I can speak to on that is we're doing a lot of state level advocacy. That's another one of our goals this year was to engage in state legislation more and be writing more resolutions to send to our state representatives for things that would benefit talent. So anytime that there has been a a bill in the House or the Senate that could have some repercussion on housing, housing availability, housing pricing, construction excise taxes, climate change even. We're writing a resolution within Talent to speak to that, or sending letters and calling our representatives, because so much of what Talent could do is dependent on what the state allows us to do. So we've been doing a lot of state level advocacy.
So you're familiar with House Bill 2001? They're going to be changing the zoning in R1 to allow for cottage housing and duplexes and fourplexes. So you're in support of that at the state level?
Definitely.
Yeah.
I just sent an email to,
I just
Senator
did that
Golden.
too. Yeah, I just did that here recently too. So our local housing advocates are advocating for that. Yeah.
Water
Yeah.
is an issue. And they say it's going to be, one of the major issues we, especially in the Valley, face. So what is Talent doing with their water situation? Because you use tap. And so would you explain what you're planning to do with, or what is the future of Talent's water supply?
Yeah, we're doing, we've been going through a whole water master plan process right now. I think it's almost done, if not just recently finished. But we're building a new water reservoir. Our current reservoirs are really, really outdated. They're not seismically sound. So we're
Now,
gonna
are these the reservoirs that are in town?
They're
that feed?
up on the hillside. So
It's not a big reservoir.
No, it's
that's
an
the
enclosed,
little ones. Oh, okay, got
enclosed
'em.
reservoir,
Got 'em.
water storage tank, I guess
Right.
would
Okay.
be.
That's what I thought you referred to. Okay.
So we're building a new one of those to store water for us. But we get our water supply through the Medford Water Commission.
Right.
And they pump it into Talent, and then Talent has a pumping station on our Public Works property, and then we pump it on to Ashland and to our residents. And because the station is downhill from where all of our residents are, it's one of our largest energy consumers is water moving. So they're hand-in-hand issues there of how much water are we using and moving, and how much energy is that consuming also.
That's huge.
It's huge. It's literally huge.
Yes.
So we're
Do you have solar around the?
not yet. It's been has been one of the areas that we've been putting a lot of energy into. A lot of attention into evaluating for solar potential has been our water pumps.
Excellent.
Right. And it's kind of not totally sure if it will be good there or not, just based on where the property is. It's in the floodplain and things like that.
Whoa.
But long term, reducing water consumption, we're looking at redoing all of our distribution lines within town. It'd be like a 10 to 15 year project and millions of dollars, but all of our water pipes are old and cracking and decaying, and so there's a lot of water loss through that.
How are you going to pay for it?
That's a great question. I think that's the question that we're always asking. We are comfortable. I think our budget looks all right, but nobody wants to raise taxes. Nobody wants to pay more for services or raise rates. But everybody wants more reliable service, more efficient service. They want to have that peace of mind that we're not going to end up like Flint, Michigan, and have contaminated water in 5-10 years. So how do we balance the needs and the opposition to paying for it?
Right. So how are you dealing with that? That's a tough one.
That's a really tough
Elected
one.
officials have to deal with that. It's not easy.
Make the hard decisions.
Yeah.
You're being paid for that.
Well, we're
you being
volunteers.
paid?
I work part-time and I volunteer full-time. This is
It's hard. It is.
Yeah.
It's I think really what I advocate for is thinking long term. If we know that in 10 years our water system theoretically, in 10 years, our water system is going to fail if we don't do anything about it. So we need to be preparing for that now, so that in 10 years, we're not hit with this bill that we could have insulated ourselves against when we knew about it 10 years prior, kind of climate change. So let's start saving, and let's, rather than in 10 years do a 20% increase on water bills, let's be doing incremental raises. And so yes, everybody will see an increase every year, and that sucks, but we'll be building up our financial reserves so that we can pay for that without needing a bond or
Why
a
not a
huge
bond?
hike. I think that
We're coming to the end here, ladies. So just a quick answer to that. But
I think that just people have a mental block towards bonds. I think that there's something that were really, really active and effective decades ago, but have been, the bonds that we are paying into now were adopted years ago, and there haven't been a whole lot of new bonds. So people aren't familiar with the concept and are really adamantly opposed, usually.
well, that's all the time we have, ladies. And I'd like to thank you very much for being on the program.
Thank you, Emily.
Thank you for
Yeah,
having
very
me.
informative.
It's great to learn about talent. You know, we're so Ashland-centric. I'm really...
Yeah, we're two Ashlands.
We are definitely, yes. So thank you for joining us today. And Girl Talk, Carol, do you want to thank the
Yes, I do.
volunteers?
I want to thank Wanda, director. Thank you, Wanda. Graphics, John. Teleprompter and audio, David. Camera floor manager, Gary. And JC, camera and lighting. And Alexis on another camera. And Iroldi, who helped with sound. Thank you very much, all of you. We
Thank
wouldn't
you.
be able to have this program without these full-time volunteers. Thank
Right.
you.
Volunteers all. So Girl Talk can be seen on Rogue Valley TV, Channel 15 with Ashland HomeNet, or Channel 182 with Spectrum at 3 p.m. on Saturdays or 6:30 on Thursdays. Or demand online at rvtv.sou.edu. You can click on the public access at the top of the page and then search for Girl Talk. Girl Talk can also be heard live at noon on Sundays on KSKQ Community Radio, 89.5 FM Ashland, and 94.1 FM in Medford. Now, I also have another Rogue Valley TV program called Getaway Girl, and it is a travel show about my travels around the world that takes you outside of yourself and into other places that can open you up to new people, new experiences, and new inspiration. My most recent show was my trip to Alaska. Carol mentioned that she was in Alaska also. It's a beautiful state, and went kayaking and hiking at the Ketchimat Bay. So you might want to check that out. We hope you learned something new today and will join us again soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Girl talk, what's better than girl